Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me today are Jeff Ranke and Anna Wells. We're the editors of IN.com and Manufacturing.net, and we each have more than 15 years of experience covering the manufacturing industry. Each week, we cover the 5 most popular stories on the website and discuss the implications they have on the industry going forward. Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to reach the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, Anna, or David at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. Anna, welcome back this week.
Thanks for welcoming me back. It's great to be back.
Yeah, you feeling better?
I am, yeah.
Jeff's is even clapping.
Yeah. Jeff, I would not be so happy. There's only one appendix left on this entire panel, so you should look out.
I'm next.
If it's contagious, you're done for. Jeff, how's the appendix feeling this week?
It's good.
Yeah?
Other parts, questionable, but
yeah.
The appendix is fine.
If you start feeling a foreign throbbing pain, get in there, man.
Get it checked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are kind of both ends of that spectrum in terms of like best case, worst case.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know. Yeah, mine comes out. I'm across the country in California and with emergency surgery in the worst hotel. And Anna's just like, I don't know, I feel bad. I'm at work the next day.
I was not at work the next day.
She was like the second to next day. Like, okay, the following day you are working.
Bad precedent.
Incredible. It was incredible. All right. Now, before we get started, we have a word from our sponsor. Oil Eater's household cleaners, industrial cleaners, and industrial equipment are specifically designed to replace dangerous solvents and are used throughout the world. Our safe water-based formula dissolves grease and grime for almost any surface and leaves a fresh, non-chemical scent. Our ultra-concentrated formulas are perfect for light, medium, or heavy cleaning and can be used on shop floors, in parts washers, to clean equipment, and more. VOC compliant, Oil Eater will do an excellent job in a multitude of applications, safely and cost-effectively, while reducing your chemical usage. Safe for the user, safe for the surfaces being cleaned, and safe for the environment. For more information, visit oileater.com or call 800-528-0334. And we're back. All right, our first story this week. Judge tells crypto plant to quiet down. Last year, Canadian cryptocurrency company DigiHost bought a power plant in North Tonawanda, New York for $3.5 million. The company wanted to use its electricity for data mining, but the townsfolk said, not in my backyard. Several residents have concerns over potential noise levels and even filed a lawsuit to try and get the city to overturn the plant approval. A judge dismissed the lawsuit but said it would be a good idea to reduce the noise because, quote, that would be a decent thing to do. DigiHost said, quote, it acted swiftly in mitigating the noise issue and will continue to monitor its impact. Jeff, it's a good thing DigiHost did the right thing.
Yeah, they listened to the judge, right? Because we all just want to be better people.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it takes. Is that reminder to be better. It's interesting, at first you kind of think this maybe is an isolated incident or there's some sort of issue going on there, but doing a little research, this is actually showing up fairly often in a lot of these locations where folks are doing more of this mining. Mm-hmm. It takes so much energy to cool down the computers when running these algorithms to try to find Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever you're looking for, that, these noise issues are real. There was a situation down in Tennessee, a couple different places in Canada where this has been a problem. Mm-hmm. This also actually made me kind of think of some interesting developments that are going on with this whole crypto thing. Came across this company, actually talked to the founder and CEO of Digital Power Optimization. They're an outfit that partners with power plants, either that are under construction, looking to expand, or just improve sort of their power balance. Mm-hmm. And basically, they'll come on site, they use some of the power generated from the plant to mine crypto. And then kind of share the proceeds.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting dynamic there. Obviously different than this situation where they took over a power plant for the sole purpose of crypto mining. But I think this is going to continue to become more of a prevalent issue or a more prominent one that pops up more often. I think it's another one of those cases where people are just saying, not in my backyard.
Yeah.
They get it. I think it's also interesting when you look at sort of the social dynamic, because this is typically a group, when you look at cryptocurrency buyers that are very socially engaged and active, and also tend to be a little bit more environmentally conscious.
Oh, yeah.
So sort of competing factors there and going after this crypto, but also running these plants are consuming a ton of energy off the grid in order to be able to do that.
It's not going to be an issue until there's a blackout or a brownout as a result of crypto mining.
Yeah.
Anna, I know that your favorite subject is cryptocurrency, so I wanted to go to you next.
Yeah.
It's not just because it's your turn.
Yeah. Yeah, I've asked for my to be paid in crypto, and I just throw my salary right in the garbage. No, I just think it's funny the way this plant setup was described, because they said that the crypto mining operation was basically set up on the front lawn of this existing plant.
Yeah.
Which sounds ridiculous, but they put the operation in shipping containers, and I think it's hard to use an inside voice in there. The folks who filed the lawsuit had it dismissed actually for two main reasons. One, the judge said they didn't have the standing to sue. It was like 3 citizens and I think the Sierra Club that kind of pooled resources and tried to sue to get this thing shut down. And then secondly, they were basically past the deadline.
Yeah.
It was like they had a limited amount of time to
30 days.
30 days to take this up with the city, and it was just too late. So I got the impression based on the judge's wording here that he was feeling maybe like his hands were tied and maybe did believe that this case had merit and just was like, come on, just, do the right thing, right? Yeah. And I can see why the townspeople find this annoying. I mean, it was described as like, one resident described the noise as, quote, like a jet engine running while you're sitting inside the plane on the tarmac. And then
that's loud.
That's loud. And complaints were coming from up to a mile away, to the point where the mayor had to issue a letter about the noise. So it was not just like this little thing that was like, irritating a couple of people that were right nearby. It was like really spreading far. And I think it got hairy because the plant, so this company, the crypto company, bought the plant. And so the town council approved the sale. I think I don't think they accounted for the noise, and you can kind of appreciate they weren't exactly approving the new use, I don't think. I think they were just approving the sale of it. So then when this came up, they're like, well, we approved the sale.
Yeah.
So it is like kind of a knotted issue for the city, I think, and for the residents. You hope that this maybe is over. It's not a very good marketing campaign for this company or for future investments if they choose to make those in other communities.
Yeah. Wasn't one of the other caveats that in order to file a lawsuit, you had to live within 1,000 feet of it or something? It seemed like you had to be real close.
Yeah, it was very
directly impacted.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. It was very specific. And unfortunately, I think that's why the judge was like, look, I can't permit this to go through, but...
Yeah. Jeff, go ahead.
No, you're just going to wonder if there wasn't some sort of OSHA regs too in terms of the noise that's coming off. When you think of a typical power plant, it's kind of that humming noise or whatever that's easier to contain or to regulate or to treat. With this being, I think, more because of the crypto mining and all of the cooling operations that are needed for those computers, probably got out of hand pretty quick. But you maybe thought there's some regulatory issues there too.
Yeah. So the noise comes from the operations in the shipping containers set up outside the plant that contain the computers. Now, opponents of cryptocurrency mining say that data mining process uses massive amounts of electricity, leading to increased emissions of greenhouse gases. And Jeff, like you said, that does kind of seem to, these normally seem like a group that have sustainability on the mind, right. And it just kind of seems like a conflict of interest. Part of the story reminded me of when they were going to put up a new convenience store by my house, and out of sheer interest, mostly because I wanted the convenience store, I went to the planning meeting, right? And I had no idea the hysteria that unfolded as a result of this. The light pollution, the traffic patterns. Could you believe the noise and the waste? Are they going to take care of the garbage receptacles? And I just sat there, enjoying the entire spectacle and just raising my hand we're talking about a gas station, right? We got gas station. They're like, it's going to disrupt the entire flow of traffic. I just don't see how you understand the trouble. It's so I get how when, while it's a handful of people that are vocal, they can make it very uncomfortable for anybody going into a community.
But this is sort of uncharted waters. I mean, these operations are so new.
Well,
Yeah.
It probably would have been difficult to foresee this.
Well, and it's so weird how the operation is set up, where the shipping containers are outside the plants.
Yeah.
If they were inside the plants, I bet it wouldn't even be an issue.
People wouldn't know. It was so like if you could be more inconspicuous about it, maybe this wouldn't be happening. But it seemed like a sort of inviting criticism. And I wonder too if it were a project that was creating jobs, maybe
a job creator, yeah,
people
absolutely.
wouldn't,
Completely agree. Because the exact same thing is happening in Park Falls, Wisconsin. There's a new crypto mining plant at a former paper mill. And they bought this paper mill and they just brought in 4 40-foot containers that have been operating since February 20th. And it's just this Chinese company that has sites in Wisconsin and Texas. And so far, the community has been receptive to it because they're the companies are attracted to areas with cheaper power and, at least in the Wisconsin locations, a cooler environment, which is needed for these servers. But if you could use nature a little bit more than other cooling methods, maybe that'll save you a little bit of cost. So the city does not believe that this is the best use of the property in terms of jobs for the area. However, it is a matter solely for the owner of the mill to decide. And so it's sort of the same thing where it's we have nothing to do here as long as they're complying with zoning codes. The city can't do much. And so the mayor, everyone's kind of speaking out about it. And it's sorry.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more goodwill towards the city. I don't know.
We already said yes.
Yeah, we cashed the check. All right. Our next most popular story this week, engineer pitches space shotgun to save the Earth. NASA researchers are looking into a new line of defense that could break apart asteroids days or even hours before a potential impact with Earth. The Pi Terminal Defense for Humanity is the brainchild of Philip Lubin, an engineer at the University of California, Santa Barbara. The project was recently selected for Phase 1 of the NASA Innovative Advanced Concepts Program. Pi would shoot a series of small rods at an asteroid like a shotgun blast full of rods. Just never thought I would ever say that sentence in my life. But here we are. Ideally, the rods would break the projectile into smaller pieces that would burn up upon entry. The system would be deployed in orbit or on the moon, but the moon would be ideal due to the lack of atmosphere and much lower gravity. With the right equipment, Pi could attack everything from asteroids 20 meters wide to a little more than a half a mile wide in minutes. Though, for those larger ones, they're going to need a little more time. Now, Jeff, I wanted to go to you first because of your rods from God expertise. You are our go-to rod projectile weapon expert.
Wow. I want that on the business card.
How does it feel?
Really, Anna doesn't have as much knowledge or feedback on military, highly technical military applications.
This is specific to the rods.
Literally none.
Yeah.
And thanks for bringing up, when did we run that video? That's got to be 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's 2016, 2017. Yet it remains just the highest one on YouTube ever.
You need a foam finger.
This is pretty interesting, pretty cool technology. I mean, and you got to love anything that starts out with the name Pulverizeit. You think he kind of leaned into that when he was pitching it to NASA, just like when kind of the infomercial are out.
Pulverize it.
Got an asteroid? Pulverize it. Push the button. Here we go. No, it's a cool approach, and it does kind of sort of a hybrid from the movie Armageddon, which Nolan mentioned in describing it, where these rods are going to actually burrow into the asteroid and then blow it up from inside.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminded me too a little bit when I first got into the Army. I was involved in field artillery, and we did have something that we would put on the end of the shells. It was a timed fuse. For those of you who are watching,
is that?
This is an artillery fuse. I don't know if you can see that, but basically you can see it's just cone shaped. It's got threads on the end. So you'd screw it into the shell, go on top. And this one is a timed fuse.
Is this an explosive device?
No, this is this is the light switch.
Okay.
Okay. It's not connected to the lights. It's not going to turn anything on.
Gotcha.
Okay. But you can see there's little numbers in there, and you'd have a tool top where you could adjust the timing. Now, typically where you use these was if you wanted shrapnel overhead. So you didn't want it to explode when it hit the ground. You wanted it to explode in the air.
Down.
So these would be a little bit different approach, obviously, because you want it to burrow into the asteroid and then blow it up.
Can I hold this?
Yeah. It's totally safe. That's a training aid. That's like 30 years old.
I gotta say, I thought this was something trivia related when he brought it in.
I know, me too.
I didn't know it was.
So that's kind of, it's just interesting because what it showed me is we're taking some technology that we sort of have a basis for and expanding the application. So, I mean, a timed military fuse has been around forever.
Our first Today in Manufacturing show and tell. I like it.
Yeah, I'm glad you went to Jeff first. I did not bring any visual aids.
Right?
You don't have military artillery fuses just laying around?
Yeah, he didn't bring one for each of us, though.
David, you can keep that on your desk.
Kind of against the rules.
Fantastic. Anna, your thoughts on shotgun blast full of rods?
Okay, my first thought was, why does NASA's website look like it has not been updated since like the late 90s?
I don't think it has. That's why.
It's going retro. It's leaning into it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess. It's just or maybe they make everyone fill out like a very long contract. Like they've been trying to do the website redesign for like 15 years and it's just way over budget and over schedule, like everything else they do.
Mm-hmm.
I think they just start new websites for everything.
Yeah.
Like they don't keep the core one, like the Mars thing. It had its own website. I don't know.
That's true. Actually,
like,
new products do have really cool new websites, and they just have the legacy site. Like, it's fine.
It's a GeoCities. Ever heard of it? Anyway, I don't know. I think you have to consider this kind of stuff. Like, I know somebody on our website commented about their concerns about like this kind of technology getting into the wrong hands, which I get it.
Like all technology.
All technology. Well, that's exactly my point. Like we already have a ton of that. Like it's never stopped anybody before. Unfortunately, maybe it should.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know.
The plot of every nefarious sci-fi movie.
I know. Exactly. I mean, so it's been said before that space innovation is an ethical imperative because species extinction precludes all other ethical considerations.
Mm-hmm.
Like, does it feel that clear cut to you guys? Like that this could potentially save lives, so we just need to do it?
I think that it's better to be prepared than, the like in Don't Look Up, when all of a sudden
I was wondering how long we were going to take before we got to that.
Well, just because I know that Don't Look Up is supposed to be about, climate change, but it's like, no, that's how we would also really respond to that pretty directly, where we would look to an Elon Musk to create some asteroid harvesters so we'd all become rich. So I like the idea of, I guess, however futuristic it might sound, a little bit of planning for, because what is it, like some half of a percentage that actually goes to protecting the planet from projectiles, like of the overall budget?
Yeah.
It's okay to put a little money in there.
I mean, well, I agree. And if, how would we calculate at which point this is a good idea if it's not a good idea now? Well, it's a 40% risk to take out 2% of the planet. Like, okay, like I don't think there's like an algorithm here where you can just decide like this is the tipping point. Like if the technology exists and this is something that is a potential threat, then I think it's something to explore.
Well, and we're really on the like beginning stages of this entire project. One thing the story made me do is look into the NASA Innovative Advanced Concepts program, because it tackles some big things like space travel, living in space, manufacturing in space, which we've talked about quite a bit, among others. And, some of the other projects that were greenlit this year were breathing on Mars, digital thread being used in spacesuits, and creating swimming rovers to explore ocean worlds. So, some futuristic stuff. And I know when typically we think of NASA, we think of like just gross sums of money.
Yeah.
But so there are 3 different phases of contracts that you get with NASA, right? This was a phase 2, but phase 1, they give out anywhere from 12 to 18 of these phase 1 contracts, and they're only for a 9-month study, and they're only about $175,000 each. So pretty exploratory. Now in phase 2, it's a $500,000 study for 2 years, and they give about 6 to 8 of these awards per year. So I know that you think space shotgun firing rods out, but it's kind of like, in the grand scheme of it, if we have to spend $500,000 to see if a space shotgun will work, I've seen worse spending.
Do you think $500,000?
I mean, I want to see the prototype.
I think it's going to go over budget.
Well, no. So that's the thing is,
See, you do know how all this works.
I do.
But then, no, that's like what they receive for the phase 2 contract. And then if they get a phase 3 contract, that's where they get $2 million for a 2-year study, but only one person or only one company gets that per year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's structured so that way you see some of this exploratory stuff in phase 1 where people are just like, no, you're crazy.
Yeah.
And then some people are like, I mean, we thought it was crazy, but that space shotgun.
Yeah.
I mean, the presentation actually looks good. So we're going to move into phase 2.
Well, I think there's two things here. First of all, it's the thing that leads to the thing. So doing this type of work, who knows what this can spawn in terms of new technology.
Yeah,
that we
more
can
space
use.
guns, like all kinds of space guns.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. We can use space guns for stuff on Earth too, Anna.
Mm-hmm.
We can.
We can.
Yeah, they shoot down drones.
Yeah.
Mm.
Duh. Also, the other thing I keep thinking about this, you said about having a plan. It's like your favorite episode of Modern Family, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the plan, Phil?
Yeah.
What's the plan, Bill?
Yeah.
So if something does come hurling towards Earth, we're not doing the equivalent of Ty Burrell jumping on the hood of the station wagon as it rolls down the street.
Mm.
We have a plan.
Yeah.
And I think that just offers a little bit of peace of mind as well.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
No, completely agree. And I mean, to your point earlier, Jeff, you had mentioned that you were surprised the space shotgun wasn't more popular.
Yeah.
I was too. I mean, maybe it was a little too futuristic for the audience this week, Just like, oh, enough already.
Enough, you guys. We've had it, says our audience.
Our third most popular story this week, spraying diesel caused vessel's engine room fire. On March 17th, 2021, the towing vessel Miss Dorothy was pushing 14 barges on the Mississippi River north of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, when a fire broke out in the engine room. The 8 crew members aboard briefly attempted to fight the fire, but were unsuccessful and evacuated. The vessel was declared a total loss at $2.4 million. On Tuesday, the National Transportation Safety Board wrapped up its investigation into the incident and found that the fire was caused by sprayed diesel fuel hitting an uninsulated section of the engine's exhaust system. This section of the exhaust system was subject to temperatures greater than 428 degrees Fahrenheit, often higher than 600 degrees Fahrenheit. It was the likely ignition point for this atomized or spraying diesel fuel. Anna, your thoughts on the loss of the Miss Dorothy?
Well, I'm not trying to offend her, but Miss Dorothy is an old lady. She was built.
Classy lady.
I know. Well, she was built in
experienced.
Experienced, yeah. She was built in 1956 by Dravo Corporation in Neville Island, Pennsylvania, but not named Miss Dorothy until August of 2016, which I thought was weird.
Given the age, I figured it was some sort of Wizard of Oz reference.
Yeah, maybe it's a Golden Girls nod. I don't know.
R.I.P.
I don't know. It's interesting because these barges, they seem to last forever if maintained. Like the Navy still operates like a bunch of really, really old barges, although they get terrible reviews from the sailors. Some of them are from the 1940s. And so you think about when these were made, like lead paint, asbestos, there's a lot of, maintenance that needs to occur on these ships to keep them operating. And what industry are we using equipment that is this freaking old? Even locomotives and stuff get retired, and decommissioned after 30 years. I mean, these are old ships.
If it floats, keep it out there.
I guess. I don't know. So I don't know. I feel like what else is kind of lurking underneath or how much work needs to be done on these, I don't know. But my favorite line in this report had to do with the fire itself and how they said that while there were no injuries were reported, obviously, but also no pollution was reported.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, just a diesel generated fire on a ship that burned for hours. It's really old. I'm sure that there was no pollution whatsoever from that incident.
I mean, this is a small engine fire that got out of hand, way out of hand, really fast. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But I mean, comparatively to, what was it, the Felicity Ace that just dropped a couple thousand luxury cars to the bottom of the ocean? That's more pollution.
It's more. Yeah.
So not so bad,
I guess.
Jeff, your thoughts on the loss of Miss Dorothy?
Well, I think a lot of what Anna is alluding to is there's almost a lack of accountability here. And you know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
I think I've made my track record pretty clear, and that's where I get frustrated. It's great. NTSB jumps in here. They do their report, and what they end up coming out with is, hey guys, this engine part, it should have been insulated because the diesel fuel combined with the high temperatures, that's what made this fire so impossible to extinguish. Okay, that's great. That's step one. Now what? I want to know, why was this not insulated? Is it because you didn't have enough people? Is it because you didn't have resources? Is there a missing part? Is this a supply chain issue? Why is that? And then secondly, just because you know the source of the problem doesn't mean, well, you lost the boat, it's done. This is resolved. This is over now. Where's the accountability? Whether it's the NTSB, whether it's some maritime regulatory organization, whether it's the Coast Guard, somebody needs to be involved in more than just saying, well, we learned what happened and that's good. And in order to make sure this doesn't happen, we're going to really make sure people pay attention to this rule that says this part should be insulated so it doesn't catch on fire.
Right.
Yeah.
Just the one
what
part.
What next?
Yeah.
Right.
Like this seems real straightforward. We've covered a number of these incidents before. And every time this stuff, I cannot imagine something more frightening than being on fire in the water.
At 2 a.m.
What do you do
like,
here?
In the middle of the night, just...
No, and this barge was pushing 14 other ships down the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
Now, I'm glad there's no fatalities.
Yeah.
There was nothing there. That's great. But there certainly could have been. If this boat was unsalvageable because of fire, if I'm in one of those 14 other boats and all the cargo that they were hauling, I mean, again, there's just the fact that there's just the incident, the investigation, and we're done seems absolutely preposterous. If this was a manufacturing facility, if this was some sort of on-land operation, OSHA would have been all over this.
Yeah.
There would have been criminal charges and fines, but there's some weird dynamic at play here. When this stuff happens on the water, nobody knows who to take charge and what to do.
I think there is going to be a little bit of accountability because there was a specific regulation that they pointed to that said this specific type of a component needed to be insulated. They found that was the cause of it. And so I think something will result from that.
But even in the NTSB report, and I know we're on the same page here, but they just said, what's the takeaway here? Insulate the part.
Yeah, insulate the part. I mean, really, unfortunately, sometimes it's that cut and dry. Like what I found interesting was that it was inspected in July 2019 and they found nothing unordinary. So does that mean they didn't look at that in 2019 or does that mean that something went wrong in 2019? The other is that, it was kind of crazy how everything was really unremarkable until sort of the fire went down and then everything was in working order until they saw a little bit of fire. And then within 30 seconds of the fire alarm sounding, everything was out of control. Yeah. The other thing was that granted that this part should have been insulated, but the other part of the report is that they never found out the cause of the fuel spray. So, and the reason I looked into it was because George F. on the website wrote in and asked, he wanted to know the cause behind the spray of diesel fuel because he suggested that not even the NTSB knows. He wanted to know. And the answer is that not even the NTSB knows. Right. Like they said, the fuel likely came from an undetermined pressure source near the forward end of the starboard main engine, capable of spraying or atomizing the fuel, such as a faulty flange connection, gauge line, pressure gauge, or pump seal. And kind of a little to your point, Jeff, is that even after this incredibly long investigation where they looked at everything, they still didn't have an answer.
But this can't be that complicated. When you've got temperatures of 600 degrees, look, I don't care how clean and how well sealed your operation is. If there's gas and oil, it's getting out someplace. It's still a liquid. And if it makes contact with that type of heat in that surface, guess what? It's going to blow. There's going to be a fire. There's going to be a spark. And if there's more fuel and oil in the area, which there's going to be in an engine compartment this size, you're going to have bad things. That's why you insulate the parts. And that's why the question needs to be answered. Why wasn't it insulated?
Yeah. And actually, that was another part of George F.'s comment is that he's worked on vessels like this previously and said that fires are common. And it's just, I mean, that's the crazy part. It's just like, yeah, another one really got out of hand. Well, we should stop that. We should, yeah. So you're right, Jeff. Insulate the part, right?
Well, $2.4 million, that's a big loss for that company. But there's insurance. You said it was an old boat. I mean, so they're gonna be made whole there. There has to be greater ramifications for when this type of stuff happens because thankfully this time it wasn't more than just the boat. Who knows what happens next time? We covered the story in December. When they were doing that dredging down in the Gulf there, 6 crewmen lost their lives.
Yeah. No, and it's, I mean, Anna, when you talk about how old the boat is, if you're going to keep it in service, you have to do your best to make sure that it's as safe as possible.
Yeah.
All right. Our second most popular story this week. Inmate working at tornado-ravaged factory hailed as hero. On December 10th, a tornado demolished the Mayfield Consumer Products candle plant in Mayfield, Kentucky. 8 workers lost their lives, but the death toll could have been higher if not for Marco Sanchez. Sanchez was an inmate at the Graves County Jail, but also on work detail at the factory. When the building came down on him and his coworkers, Sanchez found a small hole in the rubble and crawled out. He then pulled victims from the rubble and provided aid to others who were trapped and injured. And he did all of this despite having a broken leg and cracked ribs. On February 22nd, Sanchez received the Sheriff's Meritorious Award for his actions. When he received the award, he still had 7 days remaining on his sentence. He was scheduled to be released on March 1st, but he didn't have a job or a place to live. Anna, Sanchez was serving a year for stealing a phone. What were your thoughts on this this absolute heroic act
Absolutely.
during a tragedy?
Yeah. Could you imagine, being like basically a first responder with a broken leg and a broken rib trying to help these people out? It's just incredible. Mm-hmm. What's interesting about the coverage here, I think, is how the heroes in the story were the regular people working in the plant, right? Mm-hmm. And Marco Sanchez, who's a convicted thief, basically. It sounds like he's had a pretty rough go with like chronic homelessness and stuff.
Yeah.
And then the villains are the company's managers in this narrative, who were reportedly being, telling employees that if they left when they were asking to leave, that they would be fired. Mm-hmm. And I know some people have filed lawsuits about that situation specifically, but I guess the follow-up coverage is at least pretty heartwarming as it relates to Mr. Sanchez. So the sheriff, John Hayden is his name, who's actually the man who arrested him initially, is now said to be his biggest advocate. And besides the award that he was given for bravery, Sheriff Hayden has also reportedly helped him open a bank account and arranged for several job interviews.
Very good.
So I think, I don't know, there's not to get too big picture here, but I think there's a lot of debate about the criminal justice system and whether punitive actions like jail time are appropriate or if rehabilitative ones actually are more effective in turning the tide for people. Mm-hmm. I just wonder if like the public accolades, the job interviews, the bank accounts, like this will probably do more to help this person than him sitting in jail.
Yeah. So Jeff, it was miraculous that he survived because many people actually died in that area where he crawled out. Now, after he freed himself, he went and he found tools and supplies. And then after he was done helping people, he caught a ride to the emergency room, received treatment, tried to turn himself into a state trooper, who then said, "I'm busy, do the right thing," which I thought was an awesome part of the story. Mm-hmm. And then he does the right thing. He takes a shuttle to jail, finds out the jail is like demolished, then winds up in a shelter. And then after all of this, he actually helps the sheriffs relocate to a new building because their old building was destroyed in the tornado
the jail
as
was
well.
Destroyed.
Yep.
It is just, I thought it was an incredible story. What was your take on Marco Sanchez?
Yeah, it was miraculous. You said miraculous what he did. It was miraculous that he survived to begin with. Mm-hmm. And then what is it about somebody that makes him run towards the fight?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
you know, what is that? We've always talked about that. What is it within somebody that triggers that response? We all want to be that person who goes towards the fight as opposed to run away from it. But here we see that character really revealed in what he did. And like you said, it wasn't just doing the right thing in that instance where maybe you just react as opposed to really think it through. Once he got to the hospital, there could have been any number of things he could have done to either just hang out or
walk off,
do whatever. And that's where you could almost have seen this story going wrong. Here he does all these great things, and then because he couldn't turn himself in, he just went home or whatever, and he didn't. He continued to do the right thing, so it does tell you a lot about his moral character. Kind of cool, too, another follow-up was that he did receive a car. Somebody donated a car so that he has more opportunities to better his life in terms of getting to these jobs, hopefully, that he's been applying for. And like you said, I think the sheriff said he was also getting a phone and some other things just to try to get his life back on track. You'd think if somebody gives him an opportunity, these types of characteristics will continue to shine through.
Well, and it's another point to no matter where you are in life, you can always change. he had been completely removed from his family for, I think it was like 15 years. He hadn't spoken with his family because of the troubles he's had with homelessness and other likely other things. And, this was something that when it started to catch a little bit of news, they reached out and he was able to reestablish a connection.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a cool story, a nice reminder of that no matter where you are, you can make changes, positive changes in your life.
Absolutely.
Okay. Our most popular story this week: helicopter maker abandons new factory. In early 2019, Swiss helicopter manufacturer Copter announced its plans to, quote, conquer the U.S. market from its new factory in southern Louisiana. Well, things haven't gone according to plan, and the company recently pulled the plug on the entire project. Should have said retreated there. Copter makes single-turbine helicopters for transportation services, utilities, and first responders. The company bought out the lease of a former Bell helicopter facility and vowed to invest more than $4 million at the complex. It was going to create more than 120 new jobs and make a new helicopter for the company. The state offered millions in incentives. But then, Copter was acquired by Italian aerospace company Leonardo, with U.S. operations in Philadelphia, and the deal fell apart. The company blamed the pandemic and the collapse of the oil and gas sector. But Jeff, it sounds like the facility fell by the wayside after that Leonardo deal.
Yeah. And you know what? Just leave it there.
Yeah.
Just say, hey, look, we understand what was going on here before. This is a big company. Leonardo is a global operation all over the place. And for them to just be straightforward and say, hey, look, this just doesn't work. We've got other places we can do this stuff. First of all, to blame the pandemic, we all were in trouble with the pandemic. That affected all of us. That's kind of a given. Don't lean on that as your leading reason for doing this. The other thing is to talk about the oil and gas industry in the Gulf right now as being one of the reasons you're not moving forward with this. That doesn't work either.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a little bit going on right now in terms of wanting to ramp up oil and gas operations. So those things are not viable reasons. We always preach about leverage your efficiencies, eliminate waste. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Opening up this facility would have been a discredit to any of the people that were promised jobs, the local community, because they would have been there, tried it for 6 months and been like, wow, this is redundant. We don't need this.
Yeah.
So by letting this community know sooner, they were doing the right thing. Just don't guise it and all that other stuff. Just be straightforward about it.
Yeah. I like how blaming the pandemic has become an excuse for everything, Anna.
Yeah, that's why I didn't come to work last week, was because of the pandemic and the oil and gas industry.
Well, because of the pandemic, your appendicitis.
Yeah, and
Makes
I
sense.
couldn't afford to drive to work. Yeah, so this site has a bit of a weird history. I enjoy that, like, probably every time we do the podcast, you have to say the line, well, things didn't go according to plan.
Yeah.
Blame the pandemic.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry. So as mentioned, it was a Bell helicopter plant before. And the relationship between Bell and like Louisiana's economic development agencies ended up like pretty fractured in the end. They had offered Bell $26 million in incentives. And then here again with Copter, we've seen millions in incentives. It makes me think, like, I think we see a lot of these sort of, I don't know, sour results that come from some of these, engagements between economic development and business. And I just sometimes wonder if some of these partnerships do more harm than good. And I say that because sometimes I feel like these companies are bribed into making decisions that they wouldn't make if they were on the hook for the entire investment cost. And if you look at like some of the screaming deals, and like Bell got one, it's like maybe they think like, well, we could roll the dice on this because we have this money coming in to help support it. They're not necessarily on the hook for that entire thing themselves. And in the case of Bell, like they did a ton of negotiating and renegotiating. Bell was trying to move some of its jobs elsewhere. And then, the state was like, wait, can we keep these here? And we'll dial back the agreement a little bit if you keep this many jobs and just keep this assembly part, but you can move that one. And it feels like it almost gets in the way of like what your strategy would be without that. And I know that this has become sort of par for the course as these businesses negotiate where they want to be. And I get that. The states have incentives to get the jobs and all that stuff. But at the end of this with Bell, Louisiana actually tried to go back and get $16 million back from them.
Oh, wow.
Even after they were, shuttering that plant. And in the case of Copter, like they're saying they can't find a way to fit this into their 5-year plan. Like, I don't know. Like, do you think, I know that like some things changed for them with this acquisition, but like, do you think they're making these kind of mistakes if they're on the hook for this entire investment cost? I just wonder if sometimes they're like, these mistakes they're like worth the risk to just see if we can make this work. Because we talk about this all the time on the podcast. A company that invests millions of dollars, the state ponies up cash, the county does, the city does, and then in 2 years they're shut down.
Yeah.
Like, why is that happening?
Oh, go ahead.
I think the municipalities are definitely overzealous.
Mm-hmm.
I think the initial thought process, the initial goal is good and needs to continue to happen.
For sure.
Do want to pursue these companies. You do want to recruit them, make it as appealing as possible to come to or stay in your state. But there's a line. And I think that's what you're talking about here. And again, there needs to be a level, and this is maybe my key word for the whole episode here, accountability again for these politicians in terms of it can't just be about the headline. It also has to be about the long-term benefit, not just the 170 jobs now. What does that mean in a couple of years?
Mm-hmm.
Is that, and I'm sure when you look at an aerospace manufacturer like this, they're not just thinking about Copter or Bell. They're thinking about all of the supporting infrastructure, manufacturing support that's going to come in as well. All the suppliers, all the distribution, all that could also be attracted to this sort of, foundation in developing more manufacturing, more job creation. But they are going too far right now. And I think that it's just become so competitive between states that it's not just about getting the jobs, it's about not letting it go someplace else.
Yeah.
And they get caught up in that.
Well, and I think some of the stipulations become problematic as well, because you can't just run your business the best way to run your business, right? When you're held to, job numbers that you have to hit, when you have to maintain 170 jobs that pay X per year in order to receive that incentive, you're making decisions for your business based on meeting that tax incentive number rather than what's maybe best for you guys. And honestly, I mean, Copter kind of probably dodged a bullet here with Leonardo saying like, we're just not going to do it. Because I bet it would be easy for them to see kind of free money and be like, we could play this out for 5 years and
see what happens. Yeah.
And then I think that just kind of shakes up the entire area even more.
Well, yeah,
that's where those bad feelings come in.
Yeah.
When you do take advantage of everything and then just say, well, this deal is done, we're out.
And how many communities have you seen just completely wrecked by that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we go back to Foxconn all the time, but it wasn't until this year that Foxconn actually received some state incentives that they were promised. And how many times have we heard about some of those jobs not actually doing anything? We've heard the reports of them just racing around empty buildings on chairs. I mean, while that sounds like a fun gig for a week, maybe boring.
Yeah.
The other one of the parts of the story that, the part of all of these stories that always gets me is how local officials are never giving up on the site. It's like, all right, this one fell through, but we got suitors. We got potential tenants have already come in, toured the facility. I tell you what, it's not over. It's not over. And they play that for about a week, and then they're like, no, it's over. There's nobody else.
We shopped it at the helicopter show.
Yeah.
No takers.
Turns out not that many helicopter makers out there anymore. But that's the part where the local officials just try and save face. No. We have like a new sauna manufacturer coming in, and they might have 8 jobs there.
We have a cryptocurrency miner that is here to take over the site.
I mean, we ran out of time, but how did we not talk about how this like post-apocalyptic landscape where everyone never leaves their VR rigs like in Ready Player One, and all that you see outside are crypto plants just constantly humming, but nobody can hear it because we're all deaf from the noise.
I think you were the only one who went there, David.
I don't want to go there. Let's stop.
Okay.
Stop it before it starts.
I mean,
if we have a metaverse story, then we can make that jump.
This is the metaverse story. This is the beginning. All right. Before we get into In Case You Missed It, we have another word from our sponsor.
Oil Eater's household cleaners, industrial cleaners, and industrial equipment are specifically designed to replace dangerous solvents and are used throughout the world. Our safe, water-based formula dissolves grease and grime for almost any surface and leaves a fresh, non-chemical scent. Our ultra-concentrated formulas are perfect for light, medium, or heavy cleaning and can be used on shop floors, in parts washers, to clean equipment, and more. VOC compliant, Oil Eater will do an excellent job in a multitude of applications, safely and cost-effectively, while reducing your chemical usage. Safe for the user, safe for the surfaces being cleaned, and safe for the environment. For more information, visit oileater.com or call 800-528-0334.
All right, and we're back. Let's jump into, in case you missed it, stories that maybe weren't that popular on the website this week, but still stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward. Jeff, I'd like to start with you. What is your, in case you missed it this week?
So unlike Anna, the people in Savannah, Georgia, or the officials in Savannah, Georgia, really, really want to go to space. They really want to build a spaceport that'll allow basically for them to accommodate people who want to launch satellites and other things up into the great blue heavens. The problem is everybody else, not so much on board.
They're not into it.
They're not on board.
Mm-mm.
And basically they had an election there to talk about the investment. They're going to be developing like 4,000 acres of land, putting in the spaceport. And it was voted down heavily, like hardcore, like 3-1. Basically, people said, no, I do not want this. The local officials are saying, we see the election results, but only 17% of the registered voting public participated in this election. So we're going to keep running this. We're going to keep going for it. We're going to keep pushing it. The constituents in the area are saying, well, if that's what you're going to do, we're going to get this local board, city aldermen, all these people who are pushing this down our throat, we're going to get them out of there because they just don't want this.
Yeah.
And what's interesting to me is it's kind of another one of those not in my backyard sort of stories. I think they've read a lot about what some of the issues that's happened down with Elon Musk's area down there, where basically he bought the retirement community
Boca Chica.
Boca Chica.
down in Texas, and they just don't want it, even though the economic development aspect of it, I'm sure, is incredible and extremely alluring. And again, we were just talking about another aerospace project in Louisiana where I'm sure local officials were like, get them in here. This will just be the start. I'm sure that's what they're looking at here. And because this would be owned by the city, or by the county, I should say, I'm sure they see it as a very lucrative opportunity to have this type of facility. But it's going to be interesting to see how it kind of plays out. Is the county going to be able to get more people on board? Are the people going to continue to remain this adamant about not wanting this?
Yeah.
And also, is this another one of the things we're just talking about crypto? Nobody wants the noise pollution and everything else. We see a lot of benefits from what Elon Musk and what some of these other private space programs have done.
Mm-hmm.
If nobody wants it close to them, what's going to happen here? Are we going to be launching from the middle of the ocean? What are we going to have to do to continue to grow this type of enterprise?
There's always a spot. Someone's always going to take them. So maybe if it's not this community, I think they could find it somewhere else. And I mean, while the idea of living near a spaceport kind of sounds cool, if you live, because it's like this future, you think of like more of a futuristic.
How do you really feel about that one, Anna?
Yeah, Anna couldn't have scrunched her face. It almost fell in. No.
For those of you audio only,
Can we drop in a harumph? No. But so as interesting or cool as living near a spaceport might seem to me,
I'm with you on this one. I think it'd be cool.
But living anywhere near an airport is hot trash. And so the reality of it, I think, makes you understand why people might be pushing back on this a little bit.
Well, and the people of Boca Chica, where SpaceX is launching, there's, as Jeff alluded to, there's been tons of reports about traffic jams. They shut down highways. People can't I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that people don't like about being by that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all there for everyone to see. So before they went to vote on this, you can tell that people kind of did their research and decided. But it could be, just fear of rocket parts and fire and explosions, and you don't know what's going to happen.
There was stuff falling from the sky when those rockets blew. That's fair.
The video that circulated of the rocket explosion was from a woman hanging outside her condo, with her cell phone, and you're just that seems close.
So, yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I can see why people are not into it. But yeah, now this county, county board is they tried to get the courts to intervene and push it through, and it's just ridiculous.
No, and it almost feels like they've really united this community about getting behind, about not allowing
Yeah.
this to move forward, and their efforts to continue to shove it down their throat.
Yeah,
basically.
good luck getting reelected.
It is growing up in a small town. I saw on a much smaller scale a community rally together to keep a Walmart out of town. And man, when you get them riled up together, they can be powerful. And I mean,
It's any group.
sometimes you just got to cut your losses and listen to the majority.
Yeah.
If people don't want it, find someplace else to go.
Well, and this isn't somebody like SpaceX or any of those other companies saying we want to do this here. It's Savannah and the county saying we want to build this, so they will come here.
Yeah.
So there's that
so
part
there's
of it
no
too.
tenant?
Not yet.
Oh.
Okay, then no.
It's kind of like building a municipal airport. They're saying if we build it, it'll bring in all of this opportunity. People are saying, I don't care.
Yeah.
Hmm.
One thing that I would like to see. Sorry, what were we going to say?
No, it just sounds risky to me. That's all I was going to say.
One thing that I would like to see is maybe if they could provide an alternative, like wherever the site is in the town, maybe they could find someplace more out of town. I don't know. Like,
It's
try and come up with a resolution.
It's 4,000 acres. So I think there is space. And it's not like the retirement community where you're that's where it is. And it's not used to handling all the infrastructure and traffic and people and all of that. It's Savannah. It's a decent sized city. So all of that is there.
Yeah.
I think it is just kind of the mentality of this is going to be loud. It's going to be more people. It's all this stuff I don't know, not in my backyard. And I would look at it as it's not like an airport where they're taking off every day.
Yeah.
This is a bit more control. And I would see more positive than negative if it was me.
You should offer up your backyard if you like it so much.
I don't quite have 4,000 acres. So
Yeah.
need to buy up some of the folks around me.
Right.
Buy up some
If they
neighbors'
can-
yards.
I tell you what, if they
The city of Middleton. Yeah.
scale this down to a half acre, they can have my backyard.
I'm in.
All right. My in case you missed it this week is a story about a man who received the first pig heart and how he died this week. 57-year-old David Bennett died on Tuesday at the University of Maryland Medical Center. Bennett was a historical patient. He was the first person to receive a heart transplant from a pig. He died just 2 months after the groundbreaking experiment. At first, the pig heart was functioning, and Bennett, a handyman from Maryland, seemed to be slowly recovering. He was even able to watch the Super Bowl from his hospital bed while he was doing physical therapy. An official cause of death wasn't announced, but he had been deteriorating rapidly in recent weeks. Transplanting animal organs into human patients is this process called xenotransplantation. Now, previous attempts failed mostly because patients rapidly reject animal organs. But prior to Bennett's surgery, scientists used gene editing to remove pig genes that trigger the rejection and actually added human genes to help the body accept the organ. Now, this was a very tragic story, but I also looked at it, and this experiment gave this guy two more months to live, and Anna also was an incredible step forward in terms of the progress of transplanting animal organs into humans.
For sure. And they made an adjustment, and I'm sorry because I'm not a scientist, so I butcher the way I explain this, but like they adjusted some sort of enzyme in there to make it harder for your body to reject it. I think in past incidents of trying to use animal organs on transplants, that the body has rapidly rejected these. This is a long time for a pig heart to be in a person.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they are making, it seems like tremendous progress on this. Even his family, they were very grateful for the opportunity to come in, and because this was really like a last ditch effort for him. He had no other options.
Yeah.
To be able to buy him 2 more months and in the name of science kind of make some progress here was really exciting. So even though the outcome was obviously not what anyone wanted, I think that people were pretty pleased in terms of what they have learned, at least from this.
No, that's a part of this is that to even qualify for an experiment like this, there have to be no other options, and you have to be on death's door. So, Jeff, there's this huge need for another source of organs. We have more than 41,000 transplants performed in the U.S. last year, which was a record. 3,800 of them were heart transplants. More than 106,000 people remain on the national waiting list, and thousands of people never even make it. Now, David Kezarowski, he's the cardiac transplant surgeon that was a part of the team that put the pig heart in the handyman, said Quote, recent successes with genetically engineered pig transplants make clear that xenotransplantation is no longer a dream from a distant future, but something becoming increasingly achievable by modern medicine. Okay, Jeff, many questions remain, but we're closer to helping these hundreds of thousands of people in need.
Yeah, I mean, I say this a lot about a lot of things, but this is the thing that leads to the thing, right? I mean, we need to start someplace, and as you alluded to, both of you did, 2 more months. It's awesome. Who wouldn't take that?
No, when you have friends and loved ones that are on their way out and they just live for each next day, seeing that he got 2 months, that is encouraging, and hopefully he was relatively comfortable.
You kind of think, you see this type of technology being advanced. We've also talked a lot about 3D printing and the potential that technology has in this same type of application. So hopefully there is a lot in motion that can bring those numbers down.
Anna, I just saw what your In Case You Missed It is, and I'm so excited. Tell me your In Case You Missed It. Tell everyone else anyways.
Yeah, I'll tell everyone at the same time.
Yeah.
Stoli Group has announced a major rebrand and is going to end the use of the Stolichnaya name in direct response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So going forward, the vodka will be exclusively sold and marketed as Stoli, which is what everyone calls it anyway. But the driving factors behind this decision, according to the founder, Yuri Shefler, who is Soviet-born, is his vehement position on the Putin regime, which he says he's been exiled from Russia since the year 2000 because of his position on Putin. Stoli employees' determination to take action, and also the desire to accurately represent Stoli's roots in Latvia. So he said more than anything that he wishes that Stoli will represent peace in Europe and solidarity with Ukraine. I think a lot of times we've seen a lot of response to this. We see a lot of response to social and geopolitical issues from corporations. I think more and more today than we did, 10, 20 years ago. Some of the stuff comes across as kind of knee-jerk pandering when you first see it. I think in this case, there's a lot of genuine disgust towards Russia and solidarity on behalf of Ukraine from a lot of us, right? And in this case, the person, being of Soviet descent and distancing himself from the actions of his home country, I think is pretty significant. That said, it's also a clear marketing choice to say that we are not from Russia. When people have been shunning specifically Russian vodka. I mean, you read about that every day, about how bars and distributors are dropping Russian vodkas. I mean, what do you guys think? I was kind of like, I want, I think it's the real deal, but I think it's also advantageous for them from a marketing standpoint. So I don't know, is it too soon to take a pessimistic view on that? I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing, but
no, I think that in times like this, people are looking to do anything. Yeah. So for me personally, I don't know how I can help. So last night when we were ordering dinner, we ordered from a pizza place that's selling a Ukrainian pizza, and like money from that goes to the efforts. Yeah. And so that way I feel like I can actually do something. I mean, you talk about people ditching these Russian vodkas and stuff. When you read the label, most of them aren't even made in Russia. They're either made in the States or surrounding areas. And I thought this in particular was such a marketing ploy. And then the fact that they just rebranded as Stoli, I don't know. I found that funny. Like, I know that I was just like, oh man, they're going to take a big stand and cut the Chania off. So
you were not impressed?
I was not impressed, but I'm impressed by any company right now that's doing anything they can to try and like show that they obviously don't support and don't want to be at all affiliated.
So you're on both sides of this coin.
He's both impressed and not impressed. Well, I mean,
good work, Stoli. That is impressive. How can you impress and not impress somebody at the same time?
I'm impressed by their effort to do anything, but I'm unimpressed with what they did.
Hey, full rebrand. Okay.
So no, I'm impressed.
Excellent initiative for execution.
Exactly. I mean, people would normally just be like, not my problem. But they're like, yeah, we should do something. And it's like, good on you. And then they're like, this is what we're doing. Miss. No.
Well, I mean,
what else can they do?
A full rebrand is expensive. I mean, it's going to cost them a lot of money to do this. So there's that. I don't know. True. Are you impressed by that?
I am happy. I'm happy with anything that is a unifying offers a something that everybody can get behind together. And that's what this does, as well as a lot of those other things that we've seen companies do.
It's not unifying us. We are.
Well, I mean,
David's impressive.
It is bringing people together in terms of their support for right versus wrong.
That's
and
true.
what's going
Very
on.
true.
oh, completely agree.
So
It's
I
not.
am impressed by Stoli.
It's dividing David only because
I'm not a vodka drinker, but maybe I will now.
Oh man, I used to love being a vodka drinker. Stoli, I don't know. I guess I'm gonna be on both sides of this one. That's it.
All right, that's
Way to
fine.
waffle.
Yeah.
Did you see the story today though about how there are still a number of companies that are kind of just like I don't want to say lurking in the shadows, but kind of just waiting until they're absolutely forced to get out of Russia?
I did not see that, but I believe it.
Yeah, it's just so that's why they're doing something. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
And again, for me, it's not necessarily what impact this has. It's the fact that it has this general kind of overlapping effect of bringing people together.
I agree. I mean, like for everyone to rally behind this and be like,
Yeah.
this is not okay with any of us.
Mhm.
Then yeah, that's important. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, there are musicians that I follow that are selling shirts in order to support the effort. Like, I mean, it's hard to see it. It's hard to see the footage of the kids all sleeping on the same floor, packed into one single house, and just sit there thinking, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
So, if it means that I've got to go out and buy a couple gallons of Stoli, I'm gonna do it. All right.
Even though you're not impressed.
Well, we'll have to see if they also
He's
change
impressed
the flavor.
Oh, okay.
and not impressed.
You can be both. All right. Well, let's move on to our final thoughts, where I will again waffle. The first final thought, I wanted to give a commenter the first final thought.
Oh yeah. All right.
It came from a David Crows on our YouTube channel, where during the podcast, and Anna, you were out last week, so this isn't on you for missing. But when we were talking about the Model E debacle, we did not mention, nor did I ever know this, but that Elon Musk originally wanted the E name because he wanted his cars to spell out sexy. Did you know that?
No, that's awesome though.
Yeah.
Model S, Model X, Model Y. He's got them already.
That's right. He
Needs
needed
the
the
E.
Model E, and that's why he made it a 3. So it's sexy with the 3.
All right. I didn't know that.
He is a colossal dork.
And when he said, "I can't believe you didn't say that," I'm like, I can't believe I didn't know that.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Thanks.
Well
for
done, David.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I meant Elon Musk is the dork, not you. Sorry. I hope that was clear.
Did you watch
Okay, which now? Oh no, they're saying that our producers are talking about doing a now regarding this, and I'm gonna have to look that up. My bad.
Yeah, I didn't see it either.
Hold on,
I think
we'll
they're
get back to that.
hallucinating. I think they're hallucinating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're out of their
Just-
element.
They're usually drunk when they do most of their work. So
We will put a pin in it and check it out.
But I'll be in it.
Anna, what is your final thought?
Just glad to be back this week, feeling a lot better, as I mentioned. If you do experience unprecedented pain in your abdomen, you should get it checked out earlier rather than later.
Mhm.
That describes pretty much the difference between my experience and David's.
Yeah, you should not try to sleep while kneeling with your head on the bed or in a bathtub. You should just go to a doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Anna, just really happy that it was a much better experience for you. And that, I mean, I wouldn't even be here today. Like, not obviously, but I mean, like 2 weeks later, because I was out of commission for that long.
Yeah, no, I definitely have recovered more quickly than I had even expected. So that was nice. I'm not trying to like be that guy that's like, hey, I just
Yeah.
got hit by a car and I'm at work, or
Right.
like that. I'm not doing that. I did take some time off last week.
Before we get to my final thought, I wanted to ask, is it a specific episode of IEN Now that you're talking about, Eric and Alex producers? Which one? Was it?
This exact story that you guys
Oh, gotcha. Okay. That is on us then. My bad.
Thanks for your input, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good job.
I would like to say they should have spelled it out more, but they spelled it out. That's on us for missing. All right, my final thought this week. I just wanted to say hello to Pete, Ryan, and Janelle, and thank you for listening and supporting the podcast. And a specific not hello to Heather for not supporting the podcast. I also wanted to say that we had another comment on the story that you. I believe,
it follows. You were impressed and not impressed.
Exactly. I'm impressed with Pete, Ryan, and Janelle. Unimpressed with Heather.
Are we calling out everyone who doesn't listen to the podcast?
I will start. That'll be my second podcast. People that don't listen to the podcast. No, I believe this is a story that you wrote up a while ago, Anna, on why Walmart is giving 740,000 workers a free smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
And so we ran the story a while ago, and it's been getting some extra traction online. And we had a comment, this random guy comments, and his name is Dan Family Man. And he says, today, March 9th, Walmart is now asking for all phones back. Bunch of expletive deleted. And I was just like, well, my goodness, Dan.
They took the phones back?
No. So I reached out to Walmart, and I was just like, and I asked him, I talked to a spokesperson and said, hey, we're hearing that you guys are taking back the phones. What's going on? And he's like, let me say that is completely not true.
Dan Family
Man's a liar. And so we followed up. When I followed up with them, he not only confirmed that they're not taking back the phones, but the program was such a success. They're actually looking at ways to extend the program to more employees. So I know that there's just a lot of garbage comments out there. And I've just felt like we had a tiny little win in a comment section where I was like, oh my goodness, developing story. They're taking the phones back. What do you guys think? No, that's not happening. It's actually been great.
Did Walmart deny employing anyone named Dan Family Man?
No, but there was this part where they're just like, can you tell us about him? I'm just like, no. Or where you heard this from? I'm like, I can point you to where the comment was. I don't know.
You don't reveal your sources.
I just did. Sorry, Dan, the Family Man. All right, Jeff, what is your final thought this week?
Why did you bring this giant book?
I'll get to that.
Okay.
Oh, relax, man. I know she's anxious, missed a week, all that kind of stuff. First and foremost.
Yeah, before you get into it, we had a comment from Nolan who actually did write the story.
We're going to ignore Nolan.
No,
we're not going to pay attention to Nolan.
Works here.
He says that the producers are wrong. The letters were never there, and he knows because he was there.
Perfect.
Jeff, what's your final thought?
First final thought is I want to say happy birthday to my wife.
Oh,
happy birthday,
We're celebrating a birthday and just want to give her a shout out. That's wonderful, great. Beautiful woman. And we're going to have some fun. Finally can get out and actually see people and do stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So secondly, the trivia. So we didn't have as many correct answers for this one. It was kind of a tough question. Kind of realized that once I put it out. Again, the question is, which of the following are not included as a measure of manufacturing efficiency? The options were total costs, unit costs, inventory levels, and productivity. We had people guess every single one of these. The correct answer is total costs. So not as many shirts to send out this week, but I also realized in putting that one together, that was not a great question. Yeah. But what I'm trying to do is find stuff that you can't just easily Google and figure stuff out. So I went back after putting together a script and doing some of this stuff that reverted back to my military background. I went back to a book that everybody's given when they go through boot camp, because at the end of basic training, you have to pass what is called the end of cycle testing. It's 20 tasks. You need to know how to do them. A lot of them are first aid. So I went to my soldier's manual of common tasks. This one's 20 years old.
Whoa.
So things may have changed, but one of the first things in first aid is called evaluating a casualty, which would also apply if you come across somebody who's just hurt. They don't necessarily need to be a battlefield casualty. They could just be somebody who's hurt. The first there is a number of steps you take in order in terms of evaluating and then taking the right next steps. The first thing is to check for responsiveness, to make sure, hey, how you doing? See if they can help you. After that, there are 5 things. They'll start with B. So for a t-shirt, or maybe even these sweet new hats we're offering, you need to put these in order in terms of what you would check. The 5 B's are breathing, bleeding, broken bones, burns, and brain or head injuries.
Whoa.
So what order would you go in sort of evaluating how this individual is doing? Okay? So what's the first one, second one, third one, fourth one, fifth one? Again, we're looking at brain and head injuries, bleeding, broken bones, burns, breathing.
Wow.
Put them in order. Let me know.
I mean, I feel like that's a legitimate, once we learn this, a legitimate life skill that people should know.
There is a lot of good stuff in this book, actually. So we'll have fun going through and doing some trivia questions out of this one.
I was actually suggesting, I mean, if
That's what it is, Anna. See?
I guess.
If you have cool things like this laying, I mean, this should be after we've exhausted these 1,000 pages of trivia,
we got ways.
Yeah, you bring toys from home and you're like, what is this?
I got a couple of those.
That'd be hard to Google, but fun to play with.
Yeah, if somebody knew what that was by looking at them, I would be impressed. Those are my final thoughts, David.
That is a great final thought. Before we get out of here, I just wanted to make sure to remind everybody that Nolan said once again that the producers were wrong. And regardless of what he may have commented on the podcast live, he agrees with us and not them.
We just had another comment come in saying the producers need to know their role.
But they're also extremely creative when it comes to creating things out of just
special characters.
Special characters, yeah. That is one special character that they're showing us on the prompter now. Well, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
We're not already
Time
gone.
to wrap up,
It turns out we are number one.
Yeah.
Thanks,
wrap
guys.
this puppy up.
Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also email the podcast and reach any of us at Anna, Jeff, or David at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. Please give the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. I actually went and read some of them on Apple Podcasts. They're really good. Thanks, guys. We're leaving those.
Don't look at us.
Oh,
I didn't leave it.
I figured
No.
that they left them for Anna and Jeff. So it was just like, one was like, I love Anna. One was like, I love Jeff. And the other was replace the other guy.
A lot of like David is okay comments.
Yeah. Finally, you can subscribe to our daily and weekly newsletters and make sure you get the podcast in your inbox first. All right. For Jeff and Anna, I'm David Manti. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Today in Manufacturing podcast.